Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being with me here today. For those of you new to the channel, my name is Amy. I'm delighted to be here with you today, and we have a really juicy topic that we're going to get into today. What I want to talk about today is the 3 critical mistakes that all good-hearted women like you are making when it comes to trying to manifest money. Oh my goodness. If you've heard the angels sing, as I just said that, I promise you, I have got you, girl. We're going to clear through this today. So I'll go into the mistakes in just a second, but one of the things that I know, I felt the same way. So frustrating in the journey of shifting my experience with money is specifically around how to manifest money. And I mean, we get into it. We want to we get all the free downloads, we sign up for the webinars, we listen to the podcasts, we read the books, and yet we can't seem to change what we're experiencing. And we're like, WTF, what is happening? I'm going to crack the code for you today so that no longer are you going to go, what is happening? Now you'll know, and I'll help you understand how you can start to change it. So mistake number 1 is continuing to operate from the old belief system. So here's why this doesn't work. Your beliefs drive the results that you experience in your life. If you are brand new to subconscious reprogramming and call it the woo side of the world, this might be like something you've never heard of before. But probably if you're attracted to my work, you've heard something similar. What happens is that even when you attempt to take different actions than you normally would, your results are actually driven by your existing belief system. That's the part that's like really crazy and very frustrating, particularly when you're wanting to bring in money, increase your income, increase savings, whatever manifesting money looks like for you. Your belief system is likely not aligned with what you desire to have, and it's getting in the way. Now, this is because of something called the observer effect. If you want to dive into it further, just have a peek for a video on the double slit experiment in quantum physics. I'll save you the science, but basically what happens is the observer effect is that we are observing the results into reality. And those observations, what we observe, are based on what we expect to see. I'll give you a few examples. I have a friend who swears up and down she never has to walk. She always gets really good parking spaces. Now, Lake Louise, Alberta is like a couple of hours from my home. And whenever we go, the parking situation is nuts. Every time this friend of mine goes, she always gets a parking spot and she gets it pretty close because her expectation based on her belief is that she always gets a parking spot nice and close. So that's the only thing that can show up for her. On the other hand, let's say that you have a belief that people on the road are idiots and nobody knows how to drive and everybody's always getting in your way. So what happens is you will actually observe that into reality. If you ever notice when you drive with some people who have this belief and you drive with other people who are like very relaxed, the experience of the traveling is completely different because it's actually being collapsed in real time based on what you believe to be true. The same is true with all parts of our life, but especially when it comes to money and definitely when it comes to wanting to call more money in. We are observing into reality what we believe. So if we believe that money is hard and that it can only come to us through very hard work and a ton of effort, then that must be true. It has to show up for us in our life. So here's what we do instead, because we could talk about this for hours. What you want to do instead, and this is critical, is figure out what your money beliefs are, particularly, I cannot say this enough, particularly the ones not supporting you. I want to be clear. your whole money system is based on your money beliefs, and you have some really amazing beliefs that are doing a wonderful job of taking care of you and of supporting you and ensuring that you have the resources that you need. But there are some beliefs in the system that are flawed. They're old operating system mandates and they need to be corrected. We need to upload some new code, so to speak. So here's what we can do. First thing, if you're wondering, is the question everybody has, Amy, how the heck do I know what my beliefs are? Have a look at what you're experiencing. If your bank account balance never seems to go above a certain amount or even below a certain amount, that's because you have a belief that that is a safe and secure spot for you. Even if logically you don't, okay? Logic has nothing to do with beliefs. Even if logically you say that doesn't make any sense, if that's consistent in your life, there is a belief around it. If every time you hear the thought in your mind when there's something that you'd like to experience or purchase that it says, I can't afford that, there is a belief there. There's a belief that is anchoring that into your reality. And so it will make sure that you, no matter what, you can't afford the things that you want to have. Once you identify the beliefs, and you'll do this thousands of times, it'll happen over and over and over, and it will go on for the rest of your life. We want to start challenging those beliefs. We want to start asking questions about them, poking holes in them. Start giving it a little bit of friction of like, why is this belief true? And this is a question that I really love. Why do I want this belief to continue to be true for me? Every belief that we have is serving us in some way. So there's a reason that we built this belief in the first place. There's a reason that we're holding on to it. But when you start to pull it apart, you might go, oh my God, that doesn't make any sense anymore. I had this belief because, I don't know, somebody treated me poorly 20 years ago, but that's never happened again. So perhaps this belief is actually not helping me. Perhaps it's actually hindering me. Then this is the critical thing. This is the part that makes everything else work. Be willing to see it differently. This is so powerful. I cannot overstate this enough. The willingness to see your beliefs differently, to experience things differently, is the linchpin that makes everything else possible. So long as you're convinced that this belief is how you're going to experiencing things, that's the only way it can come in. So be willing to see even the belief that you have now, I can't afford this. Be willing to see that differently and be willing to look at it from other angles. And this is what I love. Play with what you could believe instead. Think of like, what could I believe instead that would be more in line with what I'd like to experience? So for example, if you would really love to experience going on a cruise and your immediate thought is, I can't afford that, start just playing with the idea, okay, so like, what if I could afford that? What are the things that I might believe to be true? How are the ways I might move differently? You don't have to do anything with it right now. You're literally just going through the mental exercise because the power of neuroplasticity is that your brain will rewire as you explore the potentials. This is very, very juicy. Then play with what it would be like if you expected that belief to be true. So if you were now someone who expected that you could afford anything that you wanted to do, well, what might that feel like? How would you expect the world to open up for you? For example, perhaps what you would expect is that the opportunities that come into your awareness are actually all opportunities that are completely affordable to you. I know people who, constantly say, I can't afford to go on vacation. And so then all they see is vacations that they can't afford. But then there are other people who know that they absolutely can go on vacation once or twice a year. And they have these amazing deals on vacations. And you're just like, how did you come up with this? Because their expectation is that they can afford it. And so therefore, those are the opportunities that are coming into them. What things would you expect to see happening if the belief were true? And then, this is critical, notice every time it does. Here's the part that nobody talks about when it comes to doing belief work. It is actually tiny itty bitty bitty incremental shifts over time. And the results, the actual changes in your life come so slowly and so minusculely that most of us miss them unless we're really paying attention for them. And even if we do see them, we often will tend to dismiss them because we're like, well, that's not big enough. That's not what I wanted. That's just a tiny little thing. Sure, I could manifest a cup of coffee, but I wanted to manifest a 30% raise. But it's these small markers that show you what you are starting to believe and expect to come into fruition are actually starting to shift. So we want to watch for those things. And let me tell you, I have countless examples of times where I've put out a desire and kind of forgotten about it, and then it came in, and then it's like months later before I even realized that thing came true for me. So don't feel bad. You're going to miss a whole bunch of them, but keep moving as if you're expecting to see this come true, and it will over time begin to shift the framework of what you believe to be true. Mistake number 2. This one is big. Oh my goodness. So many of us, especially if we have been on a personal growth journey, on a manifestation journey, so many of us make this critical mistake. We attempt to act as if in spending decisions, meaning we're attempting to act as if someone who already has the resources and would spend at this level or in this way. Now, here's why it doesn't work. When we try to act as if from a place of, if I have the money to do this, I would take this action, it's often still driven by scarcity. And that is very, very tricky to see and understand. What tends to happen, not all the time, but a lot of the time, is that you're actually taking the action because you're trying to bring in the money. So for example, years ago, I invested in a business program, which candidly, between you and I had no business investing in. It was way more money than I could afford, and it ended up being an enormous mistake. I talk about that in a podcast episode. However, I took the action from the intention of growing my business. Over time, what I now can see looking back, I didn't see it at the time, was that was a scarcity-driven decision, whipped up by the person who was selling the program for sure. I have a real issue with people who do that kind of stuff. However, I was so deep in scarcity programming in my beliefs and in how I experienced business and money. I was thinking that I was moving in the intention of growing my business, but from the operating system underneath, that this was the lifeline that I needed to take a hold of. This is what often happens when we are attempting to act as if, and we're taking financial swings. And the bigger the swing, often the more, I suppose, driven that we might be from scarcity. But certainly when it comes to money, this can also happen. It can happen in every side of your life. But for example, let's say that you desperately want to have a romantic partner in your life. And you've had relationships or you've dated, but it's never actually really worked out. And you're like, what is it that I need to do? So you throw money at the problem, you hire a dating coach, you, get onto all of the dating apps, you update your wardrobe, you do a whole bunch of things. And yet you're not having any measurable impact, because what's happening is that your actions are driven by this energy that is, I'll call it scarcity based, but this idea of like, I really want to bring someone in. I really want someone to share my life with. And so that's driving the decisions. But if there's a belief somewhere that says you can't have a loving, supportive, lasting relationship, that is what is going to win every time. So here's what we want to do instead. First one is going to sound kind of silly, but is really critical. Start by understanding that scarcity programming is hardwired into the brain. All of our brains are the same. We all evolved from the same original group of, I can't think of what was before Homo sapiens, Homo erectus? Anyway, whatever it was that was before the version of humans that we are today, all of us evolved from the same original group, and that group survived because of the scarcity programming in their brain that ensured they were constantly monitoring the situation so that they wouldn't starve to death. That's literally how we've made it to today. Understanding that scarcity programming is hardwired into the brain is really key, because what I've seen so many people try to talk about is you need to break up with the belief of scarcity. Yes. And also, that's like saying, I need to break up with the belief that my heart needs to keep beating. Of course, my heart needs to keep beating. Otherwise, I'm dead. Like, those two things don't work together. So understanding that scarcity programming is hardwired into the brain doesn't mean that you're stuck forever having to operate from scarcity. All it does is it puts knowledge into your hands. That is the default that your brain is going to go to first. And it is going to keep happening more strongly as you are shifting the beliefs. I talk about this more in depth inside my money program called Wealthy as Fuck, which is opening up for enrollment in just a few days. So if you want to get on the wait list, click on the URL in the show notes and let's get you on the wait list, because that whole program is intended to help you shift all of these things so that you can experience a completely different reality with money, that you can, like, oh my goodness, finally feel the way you want to, have the relationship that you want to with money. It's very, very good. Okay. So here's what we want to do instead. I lost myself in my notes. I was so excited. What we want to do instead of acting as if in spending decisions. Now that we hold that understanding that scarcity programming is hardwired into the brain, you can't make it go away, and you actually don't want to, because it is still monitoring your situation all the time to make sure you don't die. Okay, so we still need that very old programming in the brain. We just don't need it operating in the way that it is right now. So what we want to do is understand that and then begin to approach potential spending decisions. Please hear me clearly on this. Approach potential spending decisions as an experiment. So much of this we can play out in our brain. We can start to practice different ways of moving and acting and being in our minds long before we actually do it in person. Think about it this way. Think about, like, you had an exchange with someone in the store or a friend or in the street or at work, and then you spend the next week replaying the situation in your brain and all the different ways that you would have approached it, the different things that you would have said, the different things that, like, they would have reacted, right? You're literally practicing. Your brain is dress rehearsing for the next time that happens. Here's how I would like to do it. That's what's happening. So we do the same thing. We do the same thing. We play with potential spending decisions. So you might be going, Amy, what potential spending decision could I possibly work with? I'm so glad you asked. It's such a great question. Imagine, play with, pull out, if you would, a big financial intention that you have. For example, perhaps you would like a new car, or you'd like to buy a house, or you want to invest in a high cost coach, or like a very costly program, whatever, some kind of financial intention, a desire that already exists in your life. And then practice moving in your mind, practice moving as someone who can easily direct monetary resources toward that investment. So for example, here's a really simple way that you can start practicing this now. Because here's the thing. And listen, oh my goodness, sister, I have had the same friggin' thing happen when I first heard about acting as if, and honestly, probably for about 15 years after, like, all these coaches and teachers were saying, Amy, you need to act as if this was already true. And I'm like, okay, well, I would do this. And all I was doing was spending myself into oblivion and racking up leveraged money and feeling super defeated and frustrated because I wasn't seeing the results I wanted, because the problem was that I was acting as if, but from old programming. It's broken, which is why I'm very passionate about making sure that people don't do that now. What we want to do is we practice doing it in small ways. For example, you have an intention, some kind of financial intention. You want to buy a house, you want to buy a car. Something that I did a few years ago, and it's still one of my favorite things. I wanted a punching bag for my gym downstairs. I studied Muay Thai for a lot of years. Going to having a membership for a Muay Thai gym in Calgary was very costly and way outside of my budget. And so I started saving up. I started setting aside a little bit of money. And I got to tell you, I use the punching bag to this day and I love it. And it's one of my favorite things to do as a workout. And I feel so good about it because I paid for the bag and mats and everything that I needed from savings. What I did was, here's what we can practice: set up a savings account and start putting the overflow you have now into that account. Put it in with the intention that you are someone who has financial resources to put toward this financial decision that you would like to make. If there's a program that you've been really keen to invest in, what can you start doing now to start setting some money aside? And it doesn't have to be big. I have a whole story about how $10 changed my life. I can tell you about that another time. However, it starts small. It's the intention behind it. And here's what's very cool. When you see that money as overflow, even if it's $1, okay, you go, oh, I have $1 of overflow available in my life right now, and I am directing that overflow with the intention that I am someone who moves monetary resources easily and well. It's going to change your life. I promise you. Okay. Now, here's the one thing I do want to address this. If you do decide to make the financial move before you have the money in overflow, okay, so before you have the savings, before you have whatever it is, let's say you decide to buy a car and you need a car now, you can't wait until you have it all saved up because let's be real, cars are expensive, and you decide to leverage a financial tool such as a loan or even a lease. So you're making the decision to make the move financially before you have that money that you can just hand over cash, which is completely fair and totally fine. By the way, don't let anybody tell you that it's not. Practice daily shifting your energy around it. So here's what I mean by that. Just because you've decided to make the purchase before the full dollar amount was in your hands does not mean that it was a mistake, does not mean that you were acting irrationally, does not mean that you were greedy, does not mean a whole bunch of things. If you notice that you feel some kind of way about it, practice shifting your energy around it. I wish I had known this when I invested in that business program all those years ago because it would have made a world of difference. Instead, try something like, for example, let's say your car payments are super easy. So let's say you have a car payment that's, I don't know, $300 a month, which is amazing, by the way. But every time you have that car payment come out, you've been feeling like, oh God, I have no idea how I'm going to get this, but I really need the car. And it's probably a stupid decision to have bought this, but here's where we are. Now, practice shifting that energy. Go, you know what? Okay, I made the decision. I made the best decision that I could at the time with all the information that I had available to me. Now I have more information. And so perhaps I might look back at that decision and go, what were you thinking? However, at the time, I really did move with the best intention based on the best decision. So I am going to keep moving with the best intention as if I'm making the best decision. And I am grateful that I have this vehicle. I am grateful that I have the resources to put towards paying for this vehicle. And even if I have no idea how I'm going to do it next month, that doesn't matter. Next month, me will figure it out. Today, me is really happy that I have the resource of the vehicle, that I have the resource of money to put towards the payment. And I'm really happy that there are systems in place that allow me to make use of this vehicle before I have all the cash money. Do you see how that feels different? It's not ignoring your circumstances. It's very much honoring where you are, but it's doing it in a way that also is changing how you feel about it. And that, as you practice that regularly, you don't have to do it every day, but I say daily because so many things, especially when it comes to money, really trip us up, time after time. As you do this, it will actually begin to shift your emotional state, your nervous system regulation, and the very cool thing is it will slowly shift your beliefs as well. which is awesome. Mistake number 3. I forgot what we were talking about for a second. I get so excited when talking about this. I'm a nerd. I know, you're all very welcome. So, mistake number 3 that I see good-hearted women make all the time. Oh, this one really hurts my heart. And every time I think about this, I think about Brené Brown because, she's just the anchor point in my brain about this topic. Feeling secret shame about your money reality. Let me tell you, if there were a picture, like a definition in the dictionary and a picture associated with it, it feels like it would be like my profile picture, because the amount of shame that I have felt about my money reality throughout my life is just insane. Here's why feeling secret shame about your current money reality doesn't work. Shame will erode any work that you try to do on the outside from the inside. It just undermines everything that you're doing. It will drive you to take steps, actions, and make decisions that you normally wouldn't. And it's not that you wouldn't because you should have known better. It's making decisions and taking steps that you normally wouldn't do in the hopes that you'll receive a result that will make the shame go away. That's actually what's happening. You want this shame to go away. So you're trying to do anything and everything you can that will bring in a different result so that shame will go away. If you feel ashamed about your credit card balance or your bank account balance or your income or the bankruptcy that you had in the past, whatever it is, if you feel shame about that, you are very likely going to be driven to try to take some action to make that shame go away. And the problem with that is the only way to release shame is actually to bring it into the light. It's not about making it go away. It's not about, because here's what's going to happen. And trust me, I've been there. If you continue to feel shame, let's use a credit card statement, for example. If you continue to feel shame about the balance that you're carrying on your credit card, and oh my goodness, so many financial experts will definitely do their best to make sure that you feel ashamed about that. Don't agree with it. So long as you're feeling shame about that, you can't actually see clearly what that has been doing. For example, for a long time, and this is still something that I wrestle with regularly, so you are not alone in this. And in fact, I have a different program called Break Up with Broke that we do a whole week on releasing shame, because this is so powerful and integral, especially when it comes to money work. So for a very long time, I had a lot of shame about the balance that was on my credit card. A lot of pride when I paid off the credit card. And if I kept it paid off consistently, I was like, I am the best. I'm amazing at this. Check me out. I'm winning at life. But then if my life circumstances changed, like say, for example, I started a business, then all of a sudden my financial circumstances changed and the shame came back. And then I moved differently. I thought differently. I reacted differently. And that was creating a whole pile of a mess in other parts of my life. So here's what we want to do instead. Knowing that shame can only be released by bringing it into the light does not mean that you need to publicly announce that you've been feeling shame. Okay, that's not what I'm telling you at all. Don't go stand out on a milk box somewhere and tell everybody you're feeling ashamed about your financial reality. But admitting it to yourself is a very powerful first step. When you can actually be honest with yourself and admit to yourself, I feel really ashamed by this. I feel very shameful about this. It will start to really change your life. So admitting shame to yourself is very, very powerful. And we don't need to do this publicly. You don't even need to tell your partner or a best friend or like your neighbor about it. That's not what it is about. We can start by writing it out in a journal. Start by talking it through with yourself. You might feel a little bit like a lunatic, but that's okay. You're all by yourself anyway, so what does it matter? What you want to do is start to be willing to admit that the situation sucks. Be willing to actually speak the words out and say, hey, I feel a lot of shame about this. I feel like, figure out, I'm trying to spitball here. Figure out what's sitting underneath it. For example, let's use the example of the credit card statement that I mentioned before. So something that could be sitting underneath it is, I feel really like this is a very shameful thing to have. It's a shameful thing to have a credit card balance. So many financial experts that I listen to and I'm trying to learn from are saying you should never carry consumer credit, and and every decision I've made is dumb, and it's costing so much in interest, and I should be ashamed of having this balance. As you actually start to talk it out, here's what's really cool and kind of crazy about shame is that you'll start to realize how ridiculous it sounds. Now, here's the thing. If you are carrying credit card balances, and this is what so often gets talked about, if you're carrying credit card balances because you've just been like spending like an idiot, sorry, but that's the only way I'm going to say it. You've been spending like an idiot. Like I don't know, you're buying, thousands of dollars worth of clothes that you don't need, or you've been going on crazy vacations that you have no way to actually afford other than putting it on a credit card. That's a whole different situation. But for most people, that's not where the spending comes from. In fact, because the world is a crazy expensive place and it's not getting any cheaper, let's be real, most of what we're experiencing are things that are just supporting our daily life. Once I started to disconnect the shame that I was feeling, what I realized was the majority of the spending, like 95%, wasn't on like silly luxuries. It was groceries. It was platform fees. It was, I don't know, fuel for my car. I started to go through and went, oh my God, well, why would I feel ashamed about that? That is silly. But until you actually bring it to the light, you can't actually shift it. So write it out, write it in a journal, talk it through. One of my favorite things to do is just talk it out with myself. Now, granted, I'm sitting in a room by myself talking to a camera, so obviously I have no issues talking to myself, but I do this in the car when I would go get groceries. I do this when I'm brushing my teeth. It's harder to talk to yourself when you're brushing your teeth, but you do it in your head anyway. I do it when I'm, I don't know, doing some stretching or about to do a workout. I could do it when I'm going for a walk. You don't have to necessarily say it out loud, but it is helpful if you can speak it out loud. Because what you will start to notice is the garbage that is going on in your brain, which is only going to keep showing up in your life. No, thank you. We can click unsubscribe on that and send that on its way. Thank you very much. Here's the second thing that's really, really, really powerful about how to release the secret shame that you've been feeling about your money. It's going to sound kind of funny, okay? But trust me on this. Build your money knowledge. Before you click away, this is not about go listen to more experts, go follow, the next multimillionaire on YouTube or whatever else. In fact, doing that, I talk about it in my Money Mistakes podcast, is one of the big issues that I had early on in my money journey. And it got me in all kinds of trouble and created a whole pile more shame that I then had to release down the way. So don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. But this is what I'm saying. One of the easiest releases that I've ever experienced when it came to feeling shame about my money was when I started learning about the history of women and money. There's a specific fact. I can still feel the release. It was like someone cracked a mountain in half. It was so massive in my mind. The simple fact that women have only had independent access to financial tools since about 1964 in Canada, different times in different countries, yielded me this huge release. I had been feeling so ashamed that I didn't know how to manage money better. And then when I learned this, I was like, oh my God, less than 30 years before I was born, less than 20 years before I was born, women didn't even have access to money unless it was through a male in their life, their dad, their brother, their husband. That was the only way they really had access to financial tools. Meanwhile, here I am feeling like I should be way further ahead, but I'm comparing and contrasting my financial journey with the financial journey of the male experts that I had been listening to for so long, when men have had practice with money for thousands of years. When you start to understand, and this is the part that I think is crazy when we start to build our money knowledge, we experience things in the now, but we carry history with us. It's It's a whole thing about generational beliefs. We don't have time to talk about it today. However, we do carry that with us. So when we can start to understand some of those pieces, it's not about that we need to like reconcile it or do a whole bunch of stuff, but simply having the awareness of it can create massive release for us in the now. And that allows us to move differently. So if these mistakes have been really helpful, if you see yourself reflected in any of them, please do the normal YouTube thing. Give this video a good thumbs up. Be sure to like it. I hate when people say smash the like button. Please don't smash it. There's a screen here. Just tap it. Put a little love behind it. If you really vibe with the content, then click subscribe, and I will hopefully get more of this content into your hands. Dear YouTube, please bring this out into more good-hearted women like you. If you really love this, it would just like make my day so much if you would share this content out. That would be really helpful. And I would be remiss to close this video without extending a personal invitation to you. As I mentioned, my transformational money program, Wealthy as Fuck, is opening in just a few days from when this video gets posted. So grab the link in the, I always want to say show notes. Are they called show notes in YouTube? Whatever they're called. Down below, there is the URL. It's amyvanmeel.com/money. If the enrollment is closed, because I only open the enrollment certain times of the year, then you will be directed instead to a wait list. Get your buns on the wait list because there are juicy things that happen for people on the wait list. So you don't want to miss the opportunity just because you missed the enrollment window, but I would love to welcome you in the program. I would love to come alongside you as your money BFF to help shift what you're experiencing with money now so that you can have a much better and more joyful and exciting and happy experience with money as you continue to go forward in the future. And I'd love to see you inside. All right, my loves, that's everything for now. If you haven't yet, be sure you hit that like, hit the subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.